Turn our attention to Ukraine, shall we? The President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in the United States. Will meet President Trump in Washington later. Suggestions that the US leader, though, is considering sending long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles to help Kyiv in its war against Russia. We're joined by military analyst Sean Bell. This is an interesting time, Sean. This flight didn't just happen overnight. It will have been pre-booked, that meeting pre-booked. Obviously, we now know that phone call between Trump and Putin. Why, though, is Zelenskyy heading to Washington? Why is he heading to the White House right now?
Yeah, there's so much behind this, isn't there, Gareth? Lots to perplex. I mean, the bottom line is that Ukraine has been dropped out of the news for the last few weeks, largely because of all the activities in Gaza with Israel. And Zelenskyy needs the lifeblood of oxygen from publicity to get the international aid he needs. It's also worth pointing out that over the last few months, the number of weapons going Ukraine's way has dropped significantly. Some reports suggest up to 40% drop. That's not because the West doesn't want to support Ukraine. It's just that stockpiles back at home are diminishing, and also the defence industrial base from this country hasn't spun up the same way that Russia has. And the danger, of course, is if you don't give Ukraine Western weapons, it gets locked into a battle of attrition, 1 versus 1 on the front line, and that's a battle that Ukraine can't really win. As a result, despite the risks, we all remember those dreadful scenes in the White House in February, when the meeting between Zelenskyy and Trump didn't go very, very well. The fact is that they've got to have another go at doing it, try and persuade President Trump. The Alaska summit was much vaunted, but didn't seem to get any action from Putin. Trump seems to have hardened his line against Putin since then, and that's why Zelenskyy wants to capitalise.
This time we're talking about Tomahawk missiles, and it feels to me as though every 3 months there's a cycle in this war where there's a new silver bullet that is going to be the key to unlocking gains for Ukraine, or the key to pushing back or changing the course of the war. Why the focus on Tomahawks now?
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about Tomahawk, hasn't there? It's an incredibly capable missile, but it's been around for 30 years. It's not a new missile. The unique factor for it is its long range. It's over 1,000 miles. It's all weather, which means it can go day or night, through fog, through cloud or whatever. Travels at 100 feet, 550 miles an hour. And just the range just gives you an idea of the extent to which it can attack. Now, it's worth pointing out on this that Ukraine has developed a lot of its own long-range drones. The difference is these drones take 10, 12 hours to get to their target. They fly 150 miles an hour, and they're not particularly difficult to shoot down, whereas something travelling at 550 miles an hour, 100 feet, is a lot more difficult with precision strike. So the Ukrainians have also tried to develop their own long-range missiles. Flamingo, it was a pink missile, so they called it Flamingo. It's very big, it's very fast, but it's pretty unsubtle. It doesn't fly particularly low. It's not particularly, can't dodge around terrain. And as a result of which, they desperately need something that can specifically attack. When I was last in Ukraine, literally a couple of weeks ago, the pain that people are feeling on the ground of the fighting on the front line, they see great benefit in attacking Russian energy infrastructure. The feedback is that's starting to hurt Russia. Therefore, anything they can do to extend the range within Russia, they can start to strike that energy infrastructure, they feel is the way to turn the course of the war.
Credit to Ukraine's development of the Neptune missile, that anti-ship missile, that has proven very effective. But like you say, some of their other developments, less so. They've done very well in terms of drone developments and kind of being thrifty, I think, in the nature of this war. They've had to be. It's kind of a David versus Goliath situation in many respects. The big question that Zelenskyy as yet does not know the answer to is, will he leave empty-handed? Or if not, what's he going to leave with?
And this is the big question, isn't it, really? When Zelenskyy boarded his flight for America, it seemed very likely that he would have expected, it's his 6th visit, I think, since President Trump came into power, that it sounded like it was very positive. But, of course, since that time, Trump and Putin have had a 2-hour phone call. Trump came off that phone call being very positive. He does seem to want to negotiate with Putin again. The question is, why does he keep doing this? Because the last few times, Putin seems to have promised the world, but actions do not follow up. I think the key answer to that question is leverage. What Trump is getting is leverage over Putin. First of all, he's been speaking to the India Minister Modi, trying to stop them buying Russian oil. And now he's, by raising the prospect of giving these Tomahawk missiles, which would make life very difficult for Putin back at home, could undermine his support back at home. It wasn't a coincidence, therefore, that Putin was very keen to have another conversation with Trump. Trump, therefore, wants to see what he's got to say, making it a tight timeline. They're talking about within the next fortnight. None of us expect to see anything material happen there, but I don't think it's coincidence this has happened. And, of course, it's also true that winter's fast approaching. Winter can be very, very difficult for the front line, and within a month or so, therefore, what Putin's doing here is buying time. But I suspect, in answer to your question, it's going to be a very difficult meeting for President Zelenskyy.
We will watch the Zelensky outcomes with close attention, and Putin, a master, one might say, at buying time. Sean, for the moment, appreciate it. Thank you so much.